What you can see here, and from that discussion for the last 15 minutes, is the enormous appetite for change and the massive need to support bakers as they start moving away from what they have been learning over the last 20 years and start moving back to more traditional ways of baking.
Your basket, sorry.
Thank you. So Realbread Ireland, as we've spoken about, will both help consumers bake and find and identify real bread, and it will also very much act as a network to support shared learning and experimentation amongst bakers who are both baking real bread right now and who also want to get into that in the future, and will work to increase demand for native flours if that can be done, and to encourage the supply chain so that it's easier to get the ingredients that can support real bread. I'm going to pass over to Patrick and Joe, who are going to primarily lead this discussion. Patrick, introduce yourself and talk about
I'm Patrick, so I'm from the Firehouse bakery. I suppose I'm a bit kind of similar to Josephine as well. I was never really a baker. I was a law student once upon a time. Stopped that, became a chef, and somehow ended out on an island off the coast of West Cork, teaching bread courses, and now I have a bakery in Dalgety Wicklow. But I suppose, I'm sure we're all talking about bread. It's a very loosely used term these days. I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with our lovely industrial pre-sliced loaf. It's soft, it's fluffy, it keeps about 4.5 weeks. It's kind of sad actually, it's actually got to a stage now that we actually have to even talk about real bread. The fact that it's not just being called bread anymore. It's got so diluted. And I suppose kind of what we're doing, what we've tasted, is a far cry from what you see filled on your supermarket shelves. And it's fine for us who are kind of into it and passionate about it, but for so many people we don't really know the difference. And again, we speak about all these intolerances, these sweet intolerances, you gluten intolerant. Realistically, what 1% of the world's population are actual celiacs. The vast majority is self-diagnosed, and it's down to what you're actually eating. So kind of suppose what we're really trying to do is actually kind of establish real bread. There's a kind of a movement in the UK, but we want to kind of do our own thing here. The whole real idea is supposed to, as we say, we're trying to get a bit of a revolution going.
Good man. Photo op.
So we want to kind of, yeah, I lost the stencil that said real bread on it, that's why but again, it's just a big thing. What we want to do is kind of, I suppose, it's got to a stage now that we need to give real bread a definition. Bread deserves to be defined. You look at butter, you look at milk. You put anything in butter at all, you can no longer call it butter. This is meant to be the staff of life. You put anything in milk, you can't call it milk. Why can't bread have the same protection? So what we want to do is establish what we believe to be real bread, to educate the consumer, to help you find it, because for the basic person from day to day, you're not really, for vast majority of us won't know the difference unless somebody's going to be willing to tell us or educate us and give us a choice. We're not really here to preach though. We're not kind of here to tell people what you should be eating and what you shouldn't be eating.
And we're not here to have fun.
There's no fun.
Absolutely no fun.
Vegans are against fun. If you're here for fun, you may as well leave now. But I suppose, yeah, that's kind of what we really want to do. Is kind of, we want to educate people. We want to kind of promote what we do. We want people to be able to find it. We want people to be able to identify it. So I suppose big thing what we're trying to promote then is about kind of transparency. It's kind of open up, let you see what is in your bread that you eat from day to day, and then you can choose. Then you can pick what you want. You can eat what you like. I don't care how many chemicals you eat. Choose your own. But at least once you're educated and you know, then you can make a decision. And again, it's just kind of, also kind of as well to promote people, to get people back baking. Like you say, create a demand, get people back baking again, get that skill back, and also kind of create a network. Our bloody job is hard enough as it is, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, if not earlier. So we want to have a network between ourselves. We shouldn't be in competition with each other. You see it with the craft brewing and stuff like that. They all help each other out. Why can't we do the same, share recipes? That's why Twitter's been brilliant. most of the guys here I only know from Twitter. And that's honestly true, and it's been great because you meet like-minded people are doing the same thing that you're doing. Like we have problems, you can kind of put out, you're chatting to bakers in the UK and here, share it and help each other out, and that's why we want to have here a network. Whether you bake 1 loaf or 1,000 loaves, I don't really care. It's all about, as long as you're baking that 1 loaf. So it's not, be it commercial, be it domestic, and then there can be a network for all of us kind of to get together. Joe's got the common loaf, get people back baking that every day at home, and then we can all share ideas, and that's how we want to get going. I think Joe's going to share a bit more as well.
I don't know what else I can say after that. That sums up. Yeah, it is just, well, as like Patrick was saying, like I joined the Real Bread campaign over in the UK, I don't know, it's going back 7 or 8 years ago, because there's so little support here in Ireland. I'd be looking around and just trying to get that like-mindedness. And then social media came about, and it was fantastic. Like Pat, and that really hot summer 3 years ago, and it was fantastic. There was bakers in France, Holland, and then bakers coming from Australia, all over the UK, sharing their experiences of how to work in the hot temperatures, changing your doughs, the different fermentation, reducing how much levain you're using, and we all shared and helped each other out, and it was fantastic.
There was even a couple of months ago, a good few of us used the same flour from the same mill, and the new season flour, it was just acting arseways, and I was convinced it was me. We changed everything from, we were getting no spring in the oven, and we don't get that rise. We were literally losing my mind, and we were literally on Twitter, lads, are any of you having the same problem? Yeah. No, thank God it's not just me. But now it's all back to normal again. The flour's fixed itself. But it's like you're saying about the consistency in the flour. It's fine when you're baking at home that you can have those inconsistencies, but unfortunately when you run a business and you're supplying somebody, they go, oh well, it looked like that yesterday, it doesn't look like that today, so it doesn't work. So you do need those consistency. But it was so reassuring that within 2 seconds I was chatting to bakers in the UK and bakers here, and they could say, yeah, this is what I've done to fix it, and it was just brilliant. And that's what we should have all of it.
And you would have, like, especially like on they use the Real Bread hashtag, and we'll be using Real Bread Ireland hashtag. But there's a huge amount of all home bakers as well, and all share their images up there, help each other out, and I'd be sitting there like fantastic, and we would encourage each other all like through that. And if we can get that network as well going here, where people like home bakers would say, "What, this is happening on my loaf, or it's coming up at the side." Why? Simple, just a little answer, like where they might be able to improve. And it doesn't have, it's not a protected thing, that we can all get together and share all our information collectively.
Yeah, we need to lose that attitude. It's a big part of food, and you get a lot of chefs that are the same way. They're very secretive, they won't share recipes, they're afraid, they're afraid, oh no, he's going to steal my ideas, but we need to lose that and really open up. But the big thing, I suppose, what we're trying to do and what we want you guys involved tonight is to do, so with what our plans are for Real Bread Ireland, so it's going to be quite more loose, more of association rather than an organisation. We're all too busy to get too informal, and we just want something that's going to benefit us all. So realistically our intention will be to put a definition behind real bread, and we'd be quite interested to find out what you think real bread is. We want to establish a mark, just so the everyday consumer can identify it, set a certain standard then by what it'll be based upon. Great thing the UK version has, they have a real bread finder, which is a very easy thing to do online, but at least it'll be a map of Ireland and you can pinpoint bakeries that are baking real bread, because we've got Donegal, we've got Dublin, we've got Wicklow, we've got Peigne, Cork, Tipperary, so that's already, and that's just tonight, and if we can add more to that, that's what we want to really get off the ground. But we really want, the feedback we get tonight is going to let us go away and lay the basis upon where we can take this to.
So what would the criteria be for this real bread mark?
Well, we want to know what do you think real bread is?
4 ingredients.
So
That's it, only 4. Nothing else. So the one you had with onion seed and black sesame seed, what do you call it?
Real bread with.
It's something I want to know what people think real bread is, because big thing what I definitely don't want to happen is to get this airs and graces about it that it's elitist, or like, I suppose, to be honest, I feel O'Grady kind of went that way as well, it automatically becomes expensive and puts people off. We want it to be for everybody. The big thing is not to try to make it exclusive.
Well, it's just important, because the supermarkets are starting to cop on this too, and again, a lot of sourdough this, sourdough that in the supermarkets, and whether that's actually real.
Well, that's actually a great point, because we discussed this.
Your label is going to be very important, because you want to be mixed up or taken on by the supermarkets.
Yeah, well, that's it. I raise the exact same point. Is that I suppose a part of what we will do is, because technically there is no definition on sourdough, but we would like to give one to it, because as you say, so many places are just flashing the name around.
Got these special exclusive crumpets and Sainsbury's, or was it Marks and Spencer's with sourdough crumpets?
That's exactly that's what we want to do, because as you say, it is so loosely used, and it's a big part of I suppose the food industry, that do use these words are flashed around, because again, there is no definition on them. But we would like to, as you say, try to make it a clear idea. So actually, how many people here, because sourdough's spoken about that, actually know what sourdough is?
Do people know?
No?
Yeah. Like, as in, so I know from our own bakery that so many people, we do a lot of sourdough breads, you'd automatically come up and go, oh, I don't really like sourdough. And you kind of go, you've ever had it? You go, no. It's the name, it puts people off, because you think that it's sour. It's simply a way of making bread right.
It took me a long time to get used to sourdough, but my partner asked me to keep, we were making our own sourdough from currants and a bit of flour, and it was Thibault's flour we got, and a beautiful French flour. And I went out around the yard, stirring it every 3 and 4 days, and went off in different parts of the yard to gather as much different yeast as I could. And we have a beautiful sourdough starter now.
So this is sourdough. This is what makes your bread right. So pretty much at the moment we're surrounded by wild yeast. It exists everywhere. It's just a good strain of bacteria. So if you want to take that around, you can sniff it, you can smell it, and you'll quickly find out how it's called. Yeah? You can. Do have something. That was only fancy sourdough, so yeah.
What kind of flour did you use?
I'm two going. That particular sourdough is, I started that 6 years ago.
Is it
That is sweet, yeah. So I have two. I have a white one and a rye one. That's my point. Well, I started about 6 years ago. So I brought a from Bath to West Cork, 2 big club ticket, and it's kind of changed along the way. Almost died on me a few times.
Going around, break it up.
So what else would you regard real bread to be, or what do you think it is?
I think real bread should have
Smell it there.
real time.
That's rye starters. That's
Yep.
From a nutritional point of view, flour needs time to break down. The phytates need to be broken down in the bread in order to,
Molecules broken down.
and the gluten molecules, and the longer you leave it there, and I think what you're talking about is auto-lasing, which they used to do in Russia. They used to actually do it in a big vat. They
Still do it in France.
Well, mixed it up with shovels and flour, and then they put the lid back on, and the guys would jump on it, they'd fall asleep, and they'd wait for the lid to push them up, and they'd wake them up and into the tin.
I met one Australian baker who still uses that process in the Barossa Valley.
Wonderful, eh? Wonderful.
It was a matter of curiosity. I do a couple of markets, and one of my little procedures is I take ciabatta and I slice it up, and the children call it bubble bread. And I give any child who wants a little bit of bubble bread. And this is so that they'll know the difference between that and the sliced pan.
Just on the point,
So they're conditioned to real bread from the start.
just on your points of just what is the criteria to call real bread, what Joe has mentioned, I love the idea of the daily loaf or the daily bread, because from a nutritional point of view, I'd like to see that there's a certain percentage of whole grain, at least in the starter, and rather than move away from the completely white loaf. That's not going to make everyone very happy, but
real bread will not be exclusively sourdough.
Right, I
So
know, I
as long as
gather.
it's not using artificial ingredients or chemicals or preservatives.
And would you consider
the magic
time being
word is
important?
improvers.
Yes, or improvers.
You see, that's the, I think, sorry, if I may, I think that's the point really, that we can go a long time trying to define our real bread, but really, if we just could get the supermarkets to have the list of ingredients in front of each bread, then ours is the one that doesn't have all those things.
But they don't have to mention enzymes, and that's the
Yeah, but all of
they
that.
do, but they don't have to, and that's the point, and that's
Get that
a lot of way it is. But as Colette said, time is absolutely necessary for this bread, because a lot of the problems with eating grains are that the grains aren't being prepared properly. And as Joe said, the longer you prepare the grain, the longer you leave it in moisture and allow it to ferment, a lot more nutrients, you double it, if not. There's not enough studies actually done on it, but I think as much as they know, it's hugely advanced nutritionally. And I mean, that alone, you know, apart from the idea of your kids getting all kinds of grain problems, I mean, that alone is huge, that the nutritional value of the real bread loaf is way beyond that of the commercial produced one.
But the commercial loaf is produced in hours.
I know,
Oh, yeah.
that's what I'm saying, time is so
Hours, yeah.
important. and that's
There's
why I
a
say it should
terrific
be part-
book out there which you may or may not have come across. It's called Bread Matters
Andrew
by
Whitley.
Andrew Whitley. And that will give you a really serious perspective on how much time should go into making bread.
We
Well
did our
worth
training.
following that. You can look it up on the web.
But I suppose big thing we want though with the real bread, in a perfect world it'd be great if it was all even exclusively sourdough, but that's not what it's going to be. We want to have, no, but I'm saying, but we want to have a wider appeal. So I would say, even for somebody baking a home, as you say, with 4 simple ingredients, flour, water, salt and yeast, that's sufficient to qualify. What I regard as real bread. But I suppose, as you say, it's all these nasty chemicals, these improvers, these additives that go into bread that so many of us don't even know about. And that's why we want to suppose make that clear to people that there is a difference. And then you can choose. Because again, I suppose I feel about not getting overly preachy about it and holier than God and everything else, because that just puts people off. And as you say, the biggest aim of this is to try people, get them baking again and get them eating decent bread. But we don't want to make ourselves exclusive either. Or
No, but
to a certain
it
extent.
should
But it has to be done carefully.
It should be part of it. I mean, on the nutritional, that's why you eat, for nutrition. You know, and if there's, I mean, you're talking about, you know, difficulty. I mean, it's like, it's on an epidemic level. The people who are having problems with grain, and this is one of the reasons why, is this fast production. So time is of the essence too. And with auto-lazing, I mean, how easy can it be? I mean, you put your bread, you flour in the water, you mix it up with leave it to the side for a couple hours, stick it in your tin,
We do that automatically.
and that's it. Wonderful. Made simple and
No
nutritious.
need for folic acid addition, no need for any of it. It's all there, you know, with the time.
But if you take out the time in theory, you have to replace it with additives in order to make a bread that
That's
is
right.
edible or looks edible.
Yeah.
So, slow bread.
Slow bread, yeah.
You can make excellent bread with small amount of yeast, or you can make very good bread with sourdough or sourdough and yeast.
And yeast as
But
well.
you can't
Sponge.
dissociate the time from good bread, I don't think.
Big thing is you need to remember when you're baking at home, I suppose a lot of people look at bread and say, geez, I don't make a loaf of bread, it takes 3 or 4 hours to make it, or 8 or 9.
No.
You remember, you're not actually standing looking at it.
Not doing anything.
You have a minimal bit of mixing, and then you go off and do something else, leave it be, and you can go back to it
It's
later.
like the video we did for home bakers to start making this one. It's 5.5 minutes from start to finish. That's what it
Most of the
takes.
time he says, we leave this for 30 minutes.
Exactly. That's how it goes. We'll see you again in 30 minutes. So it goes, ding, 30 minutes is up.
7.5 hour video.
That's how long it
Just that
takes.
gentleman down in the two at the back.
They do.
Joe, you're talking about Bread Matters, the book. But one of the things is about the ingredients, about the different flours and all their understanding flours. One of the problems I have is that when you go to shops and you look at all the flowers available, I don't know whether I'm being whether the flower is real good flower. So what I was thinking is, especially with all the Eastern European people here with the tradition of good breads, isn't there a time that we look? I went to a Polish shop, for instance, but I can't understand Polish. But I looked at translation and I got to the rye flour, for instance. But I can't read the ingredients or what actually is in the packet. Isn't there a time that we look at possible that you can say these flours in the mainstream shops or in the Polish shops or wherever is good flour, or we recommend these flours? At least as a start for
What I would like is that more bakeries would sell flour kind of 2.5 kilos, 5 kilos. Very, I was really surprised how much a kilo, like if organic flour is in a health food shop. It was almost prohibitively expensive. You know, I recommend using only organic flours. And it was, so that was one thing we would do, like be supplying bread like in 5 kilo sacks, 10 kilo, because we get it in by a mixed ton of flour. I can easily be putting it in, you know. And if bakers could start doing that, open up, you know, and so home bakers can then buy flour by 2.5 kilo or 5 kilo. Like they would do that in the States and, you know, places. So it'd be great if bakeries would facilitate that.
That's a great point that we can certainly look to, if to like a web page that we would recommend good flours or sources of flour.
Yeah, so
just for the whole
to stretch the point, I mean, in Kilkenny there's a couple of mills that has very good flour mills, but you have to go around the world to basically get the flour. To buy a 5 kilos or 2 kilos or 3 kilos.
Well, to be fair, we want the same link for ourselves as professional bakers. I don't know what flour he's using and how's he finding it, or
we are all importing it. We are all importing our flour. If you want decent, let's say, from smaller scale producer flour, your best option is to order it through the UK. It's few mills selling it online.
But at least we can recommend the names.
Shipped on this.
Postage is crazy.
5 or 6.
Postage is crazy.
To Ireland,
to make it effective, you have to have a community that buys in bulk and share it out of each other, which is a cooperative. But to get to that point, you need to get first traction. That's what I'm saying is that might be in a Polish shop, they have a good flour there and at 1 kilo or 2 kilo or 3 kilo, but I can't read I can't read the ingredients. See what I'm trying to say?
Legally they're supposed to have it in the ingredients. But ingredients would only be rye flour.
We live in a fast-changing world, but there's an option there.
Yeah.
There's a lady at the back, and can we get to Olivia?
I was just going to say that the Little Mill Company, Moss's Little Mill Company in Bridge now has a farm shop where they sell lots of different flours.
And in big quantities as well, big sacks.
Someone else at the back of the question?
Yeah, no, I was just on the commercial level. Is there a case for that, like, you know, the way we have to label everything much more, that maybe is, so the ingredients are labelled, but that maybe it's more work, but then at the time is also labelled, and the method, so that people can see more then, you know, because now, I mean, especially when you buy loose bread, you've no clue what is in it or what process is used or anything like that. So is there possibly a case for that? So then, so that you say what like a simple word, what method is, and that this is, like the way they say even with beef, it's like a however many day aging, and so that your bread is a 24-hour, etc., etc.
There's when we were in Turin as part of Terra Madre in October, there's an experiment. They're developing a series of enhanced labelling for food, which will start to be a lot more descriptive in terms of the backstory. So not only including the ingredients, but a lot of the provenance and the processes that are involved as well. I suspect that will slowly evolve.
It's certainly something we could look at, and if you're doing the ingredients that you put even a total proof time from start to finish on the bread. Because it would take very little of that on.
I mean, to echo that point, I mean, most of my business is business to business, probably for that point, because it's much easier to convince a chef who understands whether you're selling a 4-hour bread or a 24-hour bread or a 72-hour bread, Whereas, there isn't any mechanism without a huge amount of education, and that's not going to come easily, that your general consumer will really know or care. I mean, it's only, I would say only less than 5% of the population would know the difference between lengths of fermentation of bread dough. I don't know.
Well, hopefully the intention was to try and change that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I'm, as you know, not very good on Twitter, but with your help being good on Twitter, that could make a huge difference, because you can reach a lot of people a lot quicker than through conventional education.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think of people, the majority probably don't know the science behind why it's better to eat 28-day aged beef, but they'll buy it because it's a selling point, or they see the value of it, or somehow, So even if they don't fully understand, which obviously we want them to fully understand, but if we could even start with that.
Yeah, well, even if we can create with the website that there's a source explaining it.
Can I ask? Do you find, like, if you're going to get a baker to bake bread in a long fermentation, do you find the price prohibitive against industrial made bread, or I don't know how much is a slice pan?
No idea.
I don't know, do you? Maybe it's the same price. I don't know. Well, if you're in the bread club locally, we do 285. If you can come.
But what size loaf?
Just tiny.
Between 750 grams and 950 grams. They range between that.
I think if someone's not knowledgeable about bread,
up to 350 if I sell it to a retailer and they have to sell it on.
Yeah.
It's then 350 because they have to do their markup onto it. But then you're about 350.
It's where education comes into it, because if someone doesn't understand the knowledge of bread, they will see it as prohibited. But if they have a knowledge of bread, they won't. If you know what I mean.
I would say so though, because the product is so different. I mean, we sell a tall white kind of pan that's used for sandwiches, and we sell it at $4.50 at the market. Now, as far as I know, a sliced pan is well under €1. Is that right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's just not comparable. I mean, we sell these at $2.80 at the market.
That's the point I'm making.
And in the supermarkets, it's €1 under maybe 79 cents.
Is that people don't understand, if they don't know anything about bread, they don't see they don't know the difference themselves. So.
Could that be a point for the children?
Well, that's one of the main points of this is to educate.
Yeah.
You go to bring back the price per kilo.
Yeah, well, that's we're trying to take everything from here, and then we can build up on it from that. But yeah, what we did, that primarily is to educate.
I would like to add to this when it comes to the money point. The most important thing each and every one of us have is our health. And the reason we eat is to maintain health. And if we're concerned about our health, the price doesn't come into it. And I think that's how I sell my bread, it's about health and being healthy. And as this gentleman here in front, he was speaking about the nutrition value of the flours and all that. And I mean, bread is the first food, it's the basis of life. And it's the most important bread we can have. And it also speaks all languages, because every nation in the world has bread. And I think it's a great community product. And it's about that. It's about our health. And why would you argue about your health?
Because good bread is most pleasurable, whereas bad bread is not.
Well, bad bread doesn't have any.
Did you have a question there? You had your hand
I
up?
was just going to say there that I'm a non-commercial baker and I love baking. I tried to bake bread for years and years, and I'd say, right, I'm going to bake. And then I'd get this lump and it'd be like a stone. And then I'd stop for 2 years. Then I'd get this burst again, I'd have another go, and it'd be like a stone. And I did that for maybe 20 odd years. Until like 30 years now. And I got a present of a bread maker from my sister. And I absolutely love this bread maker. It's in my kitchen.
Are you selling bread makers?
Bread machine, sorry. And it stays in my kitchen because it's extremely important. It gave me the kickstart to realise that it's possible to do what that thing does with my hands. However, there's an awful lot less work in it. Because I'm getting back to what Joe said there earlier on. There's a guy called Dan Leppard, which I'm sure you know well. He runs along the same lines as Joe with your daily loaf. And there is in fact no work at all in making bread. None. Because if you're an active person anyway, and you do things around the home, you can't just go away and
easy now.
leave it there and walk and do 12 hours work and come back and have your bread done. But if you're around the home, say on a Saturday or that, there is no baking. You have nothing to do because the yeast are doing all the work for you. And every now and then you just have to give a little pat on the arse and it carries on. And that's how I found it and find it. And then at the end of the day...
I won't tell you what he calls it when he needs it. I wish I was in that meeting, I'd usually say.
All I wanted to do was reiterate but there's really, as you said, 5.5 minutes, I would have said 10 minutes. Other than that, there's nothing to do because you can go on about your daily life and every now and then just go back and say hello to it a little bit and go away again. Maybe fold it once, go away for an hour, come back an hour later, give another little fold. And at the end of say 8 or 10 hours, the only thing you have to do is just put it in the oven and you get the most beautiful, amazing bread out of it. And it didn't cost you a cent to have to go down to the local shop to pick up bread. It's so cheap. It couldn't be cheaper.
Like you're saying with the bread machine, like my dad has one. So I got him to be making sourdough breads with it.
Yeah.
And there's a little setting on it. It's about 9 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I brought him down with the sourdough starter. And now he's making sourdough malthouse breads every day at home. Yeah. And he says he wants to try the stretch and fold technique. Yeah. But in the meantime, he's getting bread made from flour, salt water.
Exactly. At least you dictate what's in it.
There's no
he knows exactly what's going into that.
And there's no need to frown at that.
It's fantastic. If you're at home and that's getting you your bread, and it's 9 hours the setting on the machine or something like that, So it's getting a fermentation, and he's getting sourdough bread at home.
When he first got the bread machine, it was my alarm. He used to set it at night, and we'd hear the single beep in the morning, and it would go off, and we'd have fresh bread baked.
9 out of 10 times they were good. Every now and then there was a disaster.
Is there a gentleman here with a question?
Everything.
You raised the question of the ingredient. We mainly talked about the craft side of making bread tonight, but I just would like to move the focus on the ingredient itself, on the grain and the flour. About 2.5 years ago, I passed a crop field of ready to be harvested wheat, and I saw the farmer driving with a sprayer through the crop, spraying weed killer in order to kill off the crop so that the plants run better through the harvester machine. And this is still permitted and it is practiced. And people say in the process of achieving a loaf of bread, between farming and between growing, milling, storing and so on, maybe up to 100 different chemicals are being used. And just recently I read that the amount of celia in the UK tripled over the last 10 years. So I think it can't be good to shove this amount of chemicals into our system, because our immune system is not used to deal with these synthetic ingredients, and they are stored away in body fat. And so this is one thing I would like to give people home to think about. When you spend all this time in making your bread, I think you should spend a thought on the ingredient itself as well.
Joe, is there because the milling how do people know that they're getting stone milled flour, unless it says stone ground, against a roller milling? Do you know, are there What mills in Ireland or whatever, or is it mostly all roller milled or?
They're mainly roller mills because it's easier to separate the bran from the white starch. And the grain with a stone mill is very difficult. Unless it's said on the packaging, you wouldn't notice. But I think that those people using stone mills would say it on the pack.
I think the only one that I know personally would be Donani that was mentioned earlier.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone has worked with them.
They have stone ground, Spelt,
stone ground, yeah.
Rye, and wholemeal. You know, it's all their flour is stone ground flour.
And organic.
I just think it's excellent stuff. So it is.
I met two scientific last year. I think they used to work for Odlum, another big miller, but they went to Donani and they took a sample of his wheat flour. It only has wholemeal wheat, and they sifted it out to get most of the brown out and keep the white to make their regular test. Now I don't know how the year was good or not in 2013, but they got exceptional results. We were very surprised.
Yeah, we had an interesting experience 3 years ago. We were developing a bread mix for a client, and he insisted, because of the volume, to get the product produced on the continent. So to make the sample, we were using our flours, and he was very happy with the result. And then we got the samples back from the producer on the continent, and it was completely different, although he used the same ingredients and in the mix, and we couldn't figure out what the problem was. But eventually it turned out the difference was the roller mill to the stone mill. Because the roller mill, you can imagine the grain is squeezed through the roll, and in a roller mill it's the other way around, it's ripped open, and so that was it was a completely different bread. Yeah, so it has an effect whether you use roller mills or stone mills.
The Kells do a stone ground.
Kells has a stone ground wholemeal as well. Wheat. Yeah. Is it grown in Ireland? Do you know if it's imported?
Yes. Soft flowers, I think, are. But the other ones are marriages, I think.
Does anyone or other Irish farmer miller?
There's one Ballymena mills in Enniscorthy. He featured on East Round a few months back. His name is John Murphy.
Oh, that was the old mill. Uncle David, no? Uncle David.
No, I use John Murphy's flour for all of our brown soda breads, but and we would also use it in wheat and levains. But in a wheat and levain, it would only be 10% or 15% of the flour. You would not get a great bread like Declan saying. If you used John Murphy's flour alone, but it makes really good brown soda bread. But as Joe alluded to, you know, you are going to have to put bread soda in to make a brown soda, and that's, you know, by definition, brown soda bread is a quick dough. It's never going to be a long fermentation dough.
Well, you all make brown soda, I presume. Declan, you do. Patrick, you make brown sodas, I don't. I know you don't. But you if you have a bakery, you cannot make brown soda bread in Ireland.
You can, I don't. He doesn't.
I make my granny's recipe. Very
That's an interesting one. Is brown soda bread bread?
But the problem is, it's what they call a quick bread, and there's no getting around that that I know of.
Didn't we call it cake?
Brown cake, yes. That's what they call West Cork.
No bread.
So yeah, the intention with the real bread mark is, well, most likely soda bread won't be regarded as real bread. But also we don't expect, that's what I'm saying, so we would be looking to identify individual items.
Oh yeah, but that's what I was going to say, because I will still have to, no matter what, I still have to make brown soda, even though
the thing is, you do, because you make for your consumer, at the end of the day, they're the ones who's buying it. But in, say, what we would be looking to do and create, real soda bread would be regarded as real bread.
Yeah.
but then obviously that's fine. So you can explain the difference and the digestive, the difference between, say, a fermented bread and a soda bread. Again, let the consumer decide. But yeah, so what we'd be looking at, probably for most bakers, because as you say, otherwise we'd be looking at maybe 2 or 3 members of the whole Real Bread Ireland otherwise. But we'd probably look at individual breads. But as a part of Real Bread, if you want for people to be a part of it, and if they become part of it, they would have to disclose complete transparency, open up completely what's in all their breads, and they're going to show that off, and then let the consumer see, because there will be, like there is bigger scale bakeries who might be doing 1 or 2 real breads, but they'll also be using other ones with additives, with improvers, but they have to be willing to disclose that, so then the consumer can see that there is a difference. Because I suppose, and we are quite conscious of it, because there is like a Real Bread mark in the UK, and again it works the same way, it applies to individual breads, but a lot of bakeries then would use, okay, I've got one bread that has Real Bread in it, so I will market the hell out of that, so to the consumer it looks like the entire bakery is Real Bread. So we'd be very conscious of that, that it won't be allowed to be used loosely at all. It'll have to be.
So do you think it'll have to be organic?
No.
So what's in the soda bread? Something in the soda bread says it can't be real bread, and something else in your. It's just bicarbonate soda, and there's going to be a lot of how many chemicals did you say is going into the wheat?
What's wrong with bicarbonate soda?
Yeah, going into the wheat of the non-organic bread. That's real bread. That's not very chemicalized flour.
Again, yeah, depending on where.
All I'm saying is
but depending on where you're sourcing your flour
you're
from.
very ambitious to try and define it.
Well, it has to be given a definition, otherwise it can't work.
I don't know.
But if it doesn't have a definition.
I'll come back in a year and see how we go.
But the thing is, if that kind of attitude was taken, we would never be sitting here at all, we'd never get anywhere. And everyone would just sit back and talk about it and bitch about it and not actually try to do something about it. And beyond the handful of people that's in this room, nobody would know a difference. So all we can certainly do is try.
The big thing that opened my eyes was, remember those 99% tiger loaves that came out? And within the legislation, unwrapped baked products don't have to have ingredients shown anywhere. So I went into these. But if you look online or in a recipe book, and you look at a tiger loaf, that's a lovely long fermentation, white loaf, and then you use brown rice or rice flour and sesame oil, cover the whole thing in, and as you bake it, that cracks and get those lovely sounds. I was moving house and I went into a supermarket and got me boxes, and they gave me boxes, and it was from those breads. And it's about 20 different chemicals went onto that. So we want some way of, so people will know what's in the breads. So, as we were saying, so we have to use a Real Bread mark on any of your loaves. You have to disclose the ingredients in all your loaves at your point of sale, and then the consumer will be able to decide, I want one either with chemicals or not, and then it's for the consumer to make an educated choice of what they want to do.
That's what it is. So if you still want your soda bread or the bread for the improvers, you buy it. But at least then you can go, it's not like a blanket, so okay, one bakery is going to get it to use it entirely. It would be the same for individual products.
And how are you going to police that?
Well, initially membership is going, I suppose that's what we're discussing about how we would have members. So we're probably looking initially that we would look to invite them. And then that bakery obviously would have to be willing to open itself up to be visited or to be seen, and then followed by build it slowly from there, as opposed to just having simply an open forum where I'll pay a fee and then I become Real Bread.
So kind of an inspection though, not really just a visit. You'd really want to be inspecting them to make sure that they're actually using what they're saying they're using, and not just sending in something on a piece of paper saying this is our ingredients, right?
There would be a visit by probably the most local member of.
I think it's important to be realistic that there's not going to be a policing possible.
No, right.
Like it is at a very small stage.
But what you could do is you could ask them to, at random, that it could be an inspection on their delivery invoice. You'd see if there was improvements coming in then.
Yeah. There has to be an awful lot of trust as well from people. where we are
Yeah, I
trying
know, but
as well.
I know from my own experience, even from looking for bakers to work for me, and they cannot bake. They actually don't have any skills,
The skills,
without it.
Yeah.
And they've worked in these places in Dublin and everywhere else, and I'm expecting them to be great. And
So the way we were saying that we're hoping it would work on that, someone will apply and then one of the original members would then kind of nominate, and they would go and visit and have a relationship with that person who wants to join. And then if people are doing things behind the back and not putting those in their ingredients, like, yeah, they might be doing it, but it's still, one, it's illegal, as in, people can be putting anything into your food, but if they're not going to list them on their ingredients, that's taking, kind of deception up to another level. You have to, like, if you're buying a packet of anything and it says ingredients, if there's other stuff in it that's not there on those ingredients, that's taking it on to another level. So you have to trust that people are doing what they're saying on the ingredients that they're listing, the likes of that. And
in most cases, if you look at bread, if you taste bread, you know whether it's fairly right. You can't get away for very long without having your bread right. It shows up quickly enough.
Joe, are you then suggesting the use of a sort of a real bread logo that will be authorised, and if someone adulterates their bread, you withdraw that right to use the logo? Is that where you're going?
Yeah.
And what have you done then about patenting the logo?
I haven't designed it yet.
So we had our first meeting started about 3:45 this afternoon. So there's a whole pile of detail we haven't got to yet.
I'm sorry, I'm involved in another charity, and we got caught by this, so that you should move quickly if you're going to do it. We had Waterford Crystal take our logo.
What happened?
Oh, it's Copper Coast Geopark, different thing altogether.
But as I say, primarily the main purpose of kind of what we're trying to do, obviously it's going to develop and naturally and organically, but is to educate and promote what we do, and to get people backbaiting again, to inform people, and then if it does become that a real bread mark becomes secondary to that and then develops its own way, then it's going to go that will become part of it. But the main big part is to kind of is to show the people there is a difference and where they can find it, and just, as I say, get people back baking their own, and just make it more consumer aware. That's the primary purpose of it, and then everything else will kind of come from that.
Is it something you'd like to see? Is it? A Real Bread Ireland campaign, as in, and using these marks and getting it is.
I'd love to see the ingredients listed myself.
Yeah.
In bakeries. I'm very interested in that.
Well, now that all the allergens have to be listed on items that are sold loose, hopefully that will. It's a bit ridiculous now that it's got allergens first and not the ingredients. Hopefully it's only a matter of time before all has to be listed.
Sorry, that gentleman there?
Yeah. The problem with all these things is if you become too purist about it, you discourage a lot of people on the whole process. We have to be pragmatic about it. But it comes back to people believing in their own community who they trust. So if you can get a person in his local community to bake bread, they know whether he's a shyster or not. So that's where you have to work on it. So it's about education, it's about what is good. And it's not trying to put rules and regulations in. We have enough of them. Because the rules and regulations actually is there for the big conglomerates and the big nationals to bypass all the good stuff. So we need to work in a different way.
That's what we're trying to avoid, exactly.
We were going to have a head of bureaucratic nonsense, but we completely discarded the idea.
I have two questions actually. The first one I guess would be, how does the UK organisation kind of use their logo and determine whether or not like a baker or bakery meets the requirements? And I guess the second part of that would be like, if you require, say, an audit or them to give you an ingredient list or declaration before they receive kind of the stamp of approval, I think that would, and they would have to change the label to list all the ingredients that essentially would change the regulatory bit of it, because they don't have to say everything that says that's within, like, say, flour. But anyways, first of all, I guess, how does the UK do it?
They have a set of guidelines, generally that's the best practice guidelines that they expect their members to to adhere to, but there's actually no policing of it at all. For obvious reasons, I think, we touched on it. It's
We're a
gonna be
small group
difficult
of
to do that.
enthusiasts. We're not going to change the world, but hopefully we can change to a degree the attitude towards bread, and hopefully we can get people more interested in making good bread and selling good bread and eating good bread.
Well, I just think that, just a Twitter thing at the moment, campaign that Patrick and a few others involved in, if you can tie that together into kind of a free, open access bread education, because it's about the education, as I said earlier on, about real bread, and what the difference between real bread and we said, the supermarket bread. And to tie that together, you're talking about all these different French bakers and just the experiences you have. If you can get all into one place.
Yeah, if you follow the Real Bread Ireland hashtag on Twitter, so we've been putting up images, and yesterday I was photographing this.
And I'm watching all
yeah,
that, so I think that you can just more of that and just maybe...
Yeah, well,
and get more people to engage.
Well, that's what we want. We're trying to say like more exactly like an open forum where people can say problems they're having with loaves or ideas they're coming up with and ask questions. And
from the professional side of it, and also from the guy who makes one.
Yeah, from domestically and professionally, from both of us.
To get information from that.
So there's a website that will, as time goes on, become more informative. There'll be a pool of information that's going to be put together in that way.
A lot of the American websites are hugely over fussy and very difficult to navigate. Whereas I think some of the stuff you've been putting up there is quite good.
Now, talking about education, I visit, I suppose, 2 schools a week at present. And one of the first things I do is I bring in a loaf of sliced pan and I say, that's the reason I make bread. And I tear it open and I grab a lump of it and I squeeze it together and I say, that's what's in your tongue. This great big lump. Because when you eat this stuff, you don't even chew it, you just swallow it. And no wonder people have allergies. It works wonders. Believe you me, these kids are going home and they don't want this sliced pan.
Tom, and then William.
Yeah, no, I've been listening very interested in all that's going on there, and I think a few people have hit on the most important point here. You know, you can talk about flowers and sourcing the flowers and things like that, but I think education is the big thing. And I know from my business end of it in seaweeds, and I decided that one of the ways I was going to get across was actually to put it into a bread. Unfortunately, it's not a real bread, it's a soda bread, but how never. But I think, Patrick, you said it there earlier on, you know, about are people ready for it and things like that. Because I need to educate a lot of people on seaweeds, is that I have to meet them. I'll meet them, you know, I'm only back in Dublin today, yesterday, last week, next week, I'll be out meeting them, and I have to do it and educate into that. And I find generally, especially with breads, dealing with breads, is that people are very much open to what is in their bread at the moment. And I ask them, you know, like, what do you do? Like that one, the yellow pack over there, or that one, you know, and the long line spreads. Why do you buy that bread? You know, to get them to buy my stuff. Or why do you buy that bread? And it's convenient, you know, and that's the main thing, because people are, you know, they want to get bread quick and things like that. Not that they actually like it and things like that, but they still buy it, you know. And I say, well, I mean, sure, it's only gloop. Yeah, but if you toast it, it's nice, you know. So I get rid of the toaster. But I think, you know, that what I found with a lot of people is there is an enormous amount of people out there that actually bake their own breads. Okay, and I do get it. I get it from left, right, and centre, and very much they're very opinionated about the bread, you know, when they taste wine and things like that. But I think that if this whole movement, and I believe in it 100%, you know, real bread, real natural bread, maybe, I don't know, whatever you're going to call it, but in order for it to succeed, I think education, because I think it was mentioned here that people can kind of look at it as a bit highfalutin if they don't understand what it's about. And I think that's the thing, and just on my head, you know, Twitter is great, websites are great, but websites, I know I find with my own, is you have to make them, you know, you have 6 seconds, I think, in a website for people to to grab it and look into it. Why not dedicate a YouTube channel?
You know, that's like even Joe's videos and stuff.
Yeah.
You're more inclined to watch that and read a page for a text.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, and you know, people are more visual than they are audio, you know, or whatever. But I mean, there's none of you up there shy, you know. So I can see a lot of good videos there, you know, that could be made very interesting, very informative, and will catch people in. Festival.
Yeah.
Dedicated festival with workshops.
I'm already trying to blag my way into a little picnic.
But I mean, there is a whole lot there. But I think the point I'm trying to make is that, from my own experience, is that once you educate the people, they will become the guardians of the standard, because then they'll know what to look for. So if some shyster, as the red word, tries to, you know, shortchange the customer, at least the customer is educated enough to say, you know, what's in that? What's put in it? That doesn't taste like real stuff I've got. And they have a standard and they have a benchmark in order to judge the bread. And I know myself, you know, if I give my bread to someone like that and they'll say, well, now my granny's bread is not as nice as that, or that's nicer than it, you know. So you have to educate them, and they are curious about what's in. They're very, with recent, you know, kind of scandals and things like that going on with, you know, people cutting things with ingredients and things like that. People will ask me, what's in the bread? Where did you get it from? Where are you getting your seaweeds from? You know, along kind of class and things like that. So they are very, very conscious of what is in their food now, and they're very educated. And I think it would be an easy job to educate them, you know, to go to real bread rather than that. Zero guys.
Yeah, one thing we were looking at is having it open up to the general public as well. It wouldn't just be confined to bakers. So anybody can join, like there'd be a commercial level and then open up to public. But then we would also have open days at our bakeries for members of the of Real Bread Ireland. That, you know, the people would visit. And you know, so throughout the year there would be different, and you can visit the bakery and then learn as well about, you know, so different things like that, and to engage everybody, you know, that it's not just a corporate group doing this thing, that are opening it out.
Most of them will be at 2 a.m. though.
Yeah. When you're able, and learn how to scrub as well. You'll be fine.
William's next.
Yeah, I just, you know, I've been a member of Real Bread campaign in England for a number of years now, but I mean, they got lottery funding to the tune of a number of millions for about 5 or 6 years at least, and their funding is now, they're now just a charitable organisation, but you know, in order to actually get things on a very organised footing, if that's what is needed to educate the public, it will take a lot of funding rather than just a bunch of like-minded individuals. I mean, I know most of you individually on the stage there, and I've been busy getting a new bakery organised, and I wouldn't have had any time, and because I'm not active on Twitter, I wasn't even aware of what was going on until I made the time to come down tonight. So my point, I guess, is that, you know, can you make progress just on is it going to be just a group of tweeting information, or is it going to be a central body that actually will have, you know, some form of funding and credibility? I don't mean credibility in a good way or a bad way, but it's very hard as small businessmen to get a lot of time just dedicated to it. I mean, you know, is that something? I mean,
like this isn't going to be something that will happen overnight.
Yeah, no, and I suppose.
But exactly what point there, like I think the YouTube channel idea, that's a brilliant idea. Because if, as you say, because not everybody uses Twitter. Most people, a lot of people don't even get it. Rather not even go anywhere near it. But yeah, it's like YouTube. I think it could be a great way to do it and get it moving and create interest. And then, like, I don't think, to be honest, realistically, we're not going to be able to in a week's time yet. We've trademarked our logo, we've got our criteria, our membership, our stamp, and done. But at least if we can start with the education, and we can move forward. Obviously, this is going to be, it's, as you say, of course, it takes money, it takes time. But the YouTube, we can do virtually nothing.
Call it bread education, because that tells everybody what you want to tell them about and what it's about.
Yeah. It might be worth considering the slow food model then, set up chapters in each, you know, region, and let whichever member of Real Bread Ireland is active in each of those communities kind of hold membership for that area. I know that works really well with Slow Food. Membership is affordable. There's lots of education events all year round for the active members. So don't know if anybody else is big on Slow Food, but they certainly like, instead of reinventing the wheel. And the one in the UK is just good. It's good for your body. I can't remember exactly, but it's good for your body, meaning for health reasons. With the bread, good for the community because the local bakeries provide employment. And then the other one is good for the planet, so that the flour is transported less of a distance, and you know, the impact on the environment. So you wouldn't want to stray too far from it.
And what we were saying about vetting people and looking through ingredients, is that would cost a huge amount of money. And we wouldn't even, because there won't be anyone employed within this. So for us to be actually, trying to go to, I couldn't take a day off to go through somebody's account or something like that.
Just video it as you're going.
Pardon me?
Just video it as you're going.
But like policing things, it was just, they all added costs. So people just take on these.
They don't police it. Each time imagine how they spend a couple $1 million and not, what do they offer? Is a magazine, which I'm a member, I don't get it sent to Donegal.
Yeah.
So what do they offer for the money? I wonder where it's gone.
That was my point I was making, is that, even though I know that had millions put into them, they haven't, it hasn't probably, I mean, I've never lived in the UK like Patrick has, but has it really taken off and revolutionised the main bread making population in England? Or it's like
I would say it's one of the greatest changes in bread making in the UK.
You think it has made?
Yeah, but there's people talking about how bread's going down on the continent and stuff like that. Whereas there's a renaissance in the UK. And so they would have a huge big section at the cake and bake show, is it? So where there's this mainstream going on, they'll tie onto it and hopefully getting people and trying to create this conversation within it. And this huge amount of all small bakeries. Now they've got, I don't know how many thousand on Twitter, but apparently they've only got I don't know how many hundreds or thousand actual paying members, which is another thing as well. People like talking about it, but actually who's handing off the money is a different part of it.
Is there take a question there, 2 here, and then we'll wrap.
I'd just like to make points as well, and I'm sure Thibault is well aware of this also, that not only have we gone down to the complete dregs in bread making or what we consume in bread in Ireland.
Bread 80.
We need to bring that up. It also happened in France. I'm sure people will realise that it started to slip away down there as well, and slipped right down. And the bread, the common baguette that you pick up, that's so famous that you'd see people walking down the street holding onto it, was actually pure rubbish as well. It was nothing but water in exactly the same way. And they've had to pull that back up as well, and they're doing a great job of it. I'm sure it's the French government has done this. People will be able to tell us more.
I was in Britain not so long ago, and I was quite disappointed, I have to say, by where I was anyway. I went to 4 or 5 different bakeries.
Right back up again.
It was.
You have to look for it now still.
You do. They're not everywhere. You expect every bakery in France to be top notch.
In France, the baguettes, the traditional Française baguette, which is the quality one.
Yes.
I had a house in France, and I would have to drive 20 minutes to find a bakery doing a traditional Française baguette, and the rest is rubbish.
It's pure rubbish.
And it's just price point, and that's all it is.
Because it's their sushi, you have to be sushi.
Just what the lady next to me was saying is about not inventing the wheel. The DIY system in the country is a great success.
Same thing.
And it might be that you piggyback on that system, because and even the community garden systems, because it's all about good food. And piggyback on that systems and networks and work through them and work with them, because to start a whole new network is going to be time consuming.